get into it. I want to go over my week. Really want to go over my week. I'm very excited for this, actually. Call me crazy. I'm really excited for this to break this down. As you guys know, I'm very transparent, and everything that I post on my YouTube, I want it to be educational, right? Quality over quantity. That's just how I am, and I always want you guys to be able to learn from what I'm doing, whether it's wins, whether it's losses, doesn't matter. And this week is a really good week because there is so much education in this week, and it's really all psychological, it's mental, and I wanted to be able to give you guys these lessons so you can have them moving forward. So I'm really excited for this. Let's get into it. This is my week, guys. This is my week. This is my first red week in a very long time. I'm still decent on the month. I'm not showing you guys the month yet for a reason, because I'm going to give you guys a monthly recap as well. So still a decent month, but this is a red week, and there's a difference between like a break-even week and a red week. So this is my first red week in a very long time, and it's so funny. I remember it was a couple of months ago. I was on Twitter and I saw someone say, um, traders on YouTube never lose, dot, dot, dot. And I thought that was the funniest thing. So want to be very transparent here. That's just who I am. That's just how I am. And I want to give you guys also the reality of trading, right? This is trading, guys. If you want to do this with your life, if you want to do this full time, hey, this is part of the game. Live by the sword, die by the sword. So you're going to have some really good weeks, some really great months, some really good quarters, some really good years. But guess what? You're going to have, right? It's all probabilities. You're going to have your red week sometimes. You know, that's just part of the game. That's just part of the game. So, and then, right, I know how to think in probabilities because prior to this week, I was on a 10 to 9 day winning streak. Right? I won 9 to 10 days in a row. So I'm not too upset about that. Now, a couple of things here going into this week. Now, I do understand, right? It's very important here. You got to know your why. There's a couple of things here. I do understand why my week was a red week. Apple and Tesla was out of the rotation. Keep in mind that you got to think in probabilities, right? Let's think about this. So I don't trade names prior to they have earnings. I don't. I have to wait till earnings pass. But that being said, I didn't take any trades this week on Tesla and Apple, and there was no setups at all on NVIDIA. So what does that mean? My only setups here this week, all my trades were on AMD this week. Every single trade that I took was on AMD this week. I took 2 trades today. We'll break that down. My second trade being on Palantir. So I understand, yeah, the probabilities were actually a little bit lower for me because I'm only focused on one name, right? That's the only name that I'm really trading this week was AMD. I took every day was a trade on AMD, every single day this week. And of course I took 2 today, 1 on Palantir. So that's another thing. And one of the main lessons here that I want to give to you guys, and stick with me now, this is why I always say you can't judge your performance as a trader based on wins or losses. You can't. Why? Because it's a random outcome. You can't. And this is a great example. So, what do I mean by that? Every single trade that I took this week, I would 100% take again. These are all good losses. And this is why I try and teach you. You got to know the difference between a good loss and a bad loss. My job as a trader is to take the highest probability shots. That's it. That's all. So, the two things you control as a trader is your risk and your emotions. That's it. So if I enter a trade, hey, that's my trade. I embrace the risk, I accept the risk, and I let the probabilities play out. So that being said, I do think I speak for a lot of traders because I know a lot of big traders as well was red to start this week off and then probably cleaned it up at the end of the week. But I think we all just anticipated a lot of volatility coming into the market, right? Fed speaking this week, earnings this week on the tech side. And yeah, sure, we had some volatility. Yesterday was a crazy day, but just not the cleanest PA. But I understand statistically, out of the 4 to 5 names that I'm rotating, I only had one name that I was really focused on this week. So the probabilities were a little bit lower here on the outcomes of my trades being in my favor, right? That's how you have to think about it. So first being, right, AMD, right? Starting the week off, my losses are typically, my average losses are typically 11 to 12% on average. So AMD was a great shot. I planned my trade. I traded my plan here on AMD. I was wrong pretty quick. I took a trade off a daily key level. We got a break and retest. We're bullish biased on the higher time frame. So let's get into the charts and break this down here. Okay, guys. So plan your trade, trade your plan. Very simple here. And going into Monday, my plan here was a break and retest over 256.10. Now, why? Right? We got into the why. Why, Markel? Why is that your trade? So we are bullish bias on the higher time frame here on AMD. We are bullish bias at the end of the day. So what do I notice? We ended up, right, getting a pop here. This is not a new all-time high. We did not make a new all-time high. This 267.08 is our all-time high. You can see here, this is 266.96. So that's still unmitigated liquidity on the higher time frame. So the upside is still intact. The overall market is still intact to the upside. So I'm noticing, okay, cool. I can still look for my pullback longs off my key levels targeting all-time high because we haven't taken out that liquidity. So, right, what do you know? This is the previous day low. So we ended up reclaiming the previous day low here, which is also a confluence with my daily resistance level. That's great. That's amazing. That's exactly what I want. Like I said, I do not trade off of previous day lows and previous day highs, but I use them as context references. So statistically speaking, if we break under a previous day low and buyers reclaim that, they are normally going to push that back up to the top of the range. We're bullish bias, and this previous day low is acting as a liquidity pocket. So when I see this coming into market open, I say, okay, perfect. We swept the previous day low, right? So we swept that liquidity. We're reclaiming that. That's a liquidity pocket where buyers typically step in to push this thing back to the upside. This is great. I love the confluence here. So all I'm doing is looking for a break and retest over 256.10, right? And as always, the RR, there's nothing in its way to the upside. So this is 100% worth the risk for me. I planned my trade. I traded my plan. This is a great shot that I would take again. And this was earlier in the week, so everything's easy to say in hindsight. But as you can see, throughout the week, we ended up just pretty much doing this here on AMD. That's all we ended up doing for the remainder of the week. So let's go here into the intraday on Monday on the 2-minute time frame. Okay, sorry. So I actually had a key level here at 252.90, and then I ended up cleaning this up towards the end of the week. So 252.90 here on AMD. Perfect. So coming into the day, I was looking at this for a pullback long off my key level at the time was 252.90. And as you can see, I ended up getting the pullback that I was looking for. We ended up pulling back. We're bullish bias on the higher time frame. I'm seeing these wicks step in at my key level, right? I ended up taking my shot here on AMD, right? Took my shot, boom, to the upside, ended up getting stopped out. I cut it. I'm a great loser. I cut it. Now, I took 2 trades here on this day, and I'm going to explain the second trade. Well, I'll go to TradeZilla and I'll show you that, but I'll explain it here. The same thing that I'm teaching you guys, I'm doing the exact same thing. So what do you guys always hear me say? Whenever we pull back to a key level and buyers defend that, and we fall under that key level and reclaim it with momentum, that is shorts getting squeezed out of their positions for a loss. So my second entry here, I ended up playing the reclaim on momentum, right? Ended up playing the reclaim here on momentum off my 252.90. Plan your trade, trade your plan. Now let's go here to TradeZilla. So this was my second entry here on AMD. And as you can see, I sat in this trade for roughly 30 minutes, half an hour. So as you always hear me say, as long as price is above or below the key level that you're risking off of, your thesis is correct. So this is me trading my chart, not my P&L. And I ended up getting stopped out for, what was it? A 12% loss. So, right, plan the trade, trade my plan. Now, what do you notice? I didn't go on tilt. I planned my trades, I traded my plans, I took 2 high probability shots, and I said, you know what? It's just not ready. Today's not the day. It's not ready. And right, that was the right decision. And this is why I'm very big on you have to be a great loser. Plan your trade, trade your plan, understand that you're taking a high probability shot. And if it doesn't work out, which, hey, I was looking for this, if it doesn't work out, all right, cut it. You took 2 high probability shots, it just wasn't ready. And as you can see, we ended up just doing this. So what does that tell me? Just a low probability day. Like I said, this is all easier to say at the end of the week now that price action has developed. But we were pretty much ranging all week here on AMD. So that was Monday's trade. Let's go into Tuesday. Now Tuesday, crazy. I love Tuesday's trade. Plan your trade, trade your plan. If you look down here to the bottom right, I was in this trade for over an hour, guys. For over an hour. But I'm practicing what I'm preaching. As you always hear me say, as long as the key level that you're risking off of is above or below that key level, your thesis is correct. And something I want to point out here is, right, I don't trade my P&L. That's something I really want to make clear here. You have to understand the type of trader that you are. Me, I am not a scalper. I don't care to take a base hit. I don't care to take the quick 6, 7%. The entire point, at least for me, trading on the higher time frame, the break and retest, is the bigger RR, right? That's the entire point. It defeats the purpose if you wait for 3 days to take a break and retest off a weekly level, and as soon as the trade goes in your favor, you get out of it for 6%. So like I said, every trade that I take is a big RR and it's an A+ shot, and I'm trading off the higher time frame. So practice what I'm preaching, right? Yeah, sure, you can look at this and say, man, you are already up in a couple of minutes, $1,200. That's a terrible RR. You guys always hear me say in my live trading sessions, hey guys, we're approaching the high day. I'm up about 10%, but I'd rather just take the loss here because I'm looking for the bigger move. These are practicing good habits because when those days come where we get that continuation and we get those follow throughs, that's how you get those 30, 40% days without forcing it. So I sat in this trade for over an hour. As long as my key level held, so did I. Right? And to sit in this trade for over an hour and only have pretty much a 10% loss, these contracts held up very well. You can see, we ended up pulling back. We bounced up again. These contracts held very well. So plan your trade, trade your plan. I sat in my trade looking for that bigger upside. As long as my level held, so did I. So it did pretty well here, sitting here for pretty much a little bit over an hour. So let's go to the charts here on Tuesday. Okay, so here we are here on AMD. So like I said, guys, keep in mind, everything is easy to say in hindsight, but I did not have, at the time, this wasn't a key level, this 249.80. I did not have this. So my key level going into this week, or going into this session, was still 252.90. And as you can see, it ended up playing out. I ended up playing out. I was looking for the bigger move here. on AMD, knowing, okay, cool, we can get a push into here, we get a reclaim over our level. This looks super solid. So the game plan coming into today, like I said, we're still bullish bias. And this was amazing on the intraday, which I really loved. Keep in mind, guys, we're bullish bias. So we ended up rejecting my key level. This is what I love to see, right? I want to see a reaction at my key level before I take a trade off of it. We pull all the way back down to the lower day. What do you notice here? This is a V-shaped recovery. The bulls have 100% taken over, right? This is great. Price action looks good. Price action is clean. We're stair-stepping to the upside. We just broke over the high day. We're breaking over a key level here. The confluence all around is amazing. I love this. So at the time, like I said, 252.90 was our key level. I'm looking for a break and retest over 252.90, targeting, right, all-time highs, targeting the top of the range. This is a great trade. So ended up getting the break, getting the break, got the retest here. Buyer stepped up. I ended up taking my shot here, right? I was up right here, and I sat in this trade for over an hour. At the time, it was a key level, and I love it. You can see, right, we did do our absolute best to defend this key level. This live trading session is actually posted on my YouTube, so you can go check that out. And guess what? We broke this key level, we turned it into resistance, and then that led to that. So solid here, right? I planned my trade, I traded my plan, I let the probabilities play out. Hey, we didn't get this push into the higher day. So what am I looking at my P&L for, saying, oh man, I'm already up, almost 2,000. Should I just get out here? No, I'm looking for the bigger RR. Everything is screaming, take this trade. And it just wasn't ready, right? You got to think in probabilities. So this was a great trade. We had a V-shaped recovery. This is what you call the morning squeeze, where you think, all right, the bears are in control, we're pushing this thing lower. No, we're bullish bias on the higher time frame. These are shorts getting squeezed out of their positions for a loss. We know this by now. And what does that do? Fuel that move higher. So this was a great trade. I love the trade. I will 100% take it again, right? We got the break. What do I always say? Wait for the displacement. This is proper displacement. We get the pullback, buyer step up, I take my shot. So that's why I say you got to know the difference between a good loss and a bad loss. This was a good loss. Good displacement, break over the high day. We get the retest, buyer step up. I enter in a momentum candle. The outcome is out of my control. It's not my job. It's all perspective. Because if this trade plays out, I get this. Oh man, I just caught this. Beautiful, right? So 100% would take this trade again. Love the trade. Good loser, right? I understood. So now, stick with me, guys. Now, at this point on Tuesday, I've taken 3 shots on AMD and I've lost all 3 trades. So did I go on tilt? Did I have FOMO kick in? Did I question myself? No. As long as I'm taking good high probability shots and I'm planning my trade and trading my plan, there's nothing else for me to do different. So you can see here, I said, hey, I took a high probability shot. I'm done. I took my one trade. That's all she wrote. And then Wednesday comes around. Obviously, it's FOMC. So we ended up obviously having a cash day. And then yesterday, right? Yesterday was a big day to the downside, as we know. So now that you notice here that my position size is no longer 25,000, it's roughly 20. Remember, guys, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. On Thursdays and Fridays, I scale down and I play at the money. Why? Because now these contracts are more volatile. They're more risky. You have to be a risk manager before a trader. So on Monday through Wednesday, I'm full size. I'm on the gas. And I think that's where a lot of us probably went wrong this week. A lot of big traders is anticipating a lot to go on with earnings and feds. But, right, plan your trade your plan, keep your position size in the same. But on Thursdays and Fridays, I am now on defense. So you notice this, right? I'm sitting around, I'm going to just round this to 20,000 compared to 25 to 30,000. Big difference there. And this is really interesting. This is the biggest lesson on this day. Well, I believe they're all big lessons, but this one I'm really excited to break down here because I'm going to show you the definition of when I always say the trend is your friend and the dip is your best friend. So let's get into this chart and break down this trade. So as you can see here, we are very bullish bias on AMD. Very bullish bias on AMD. We're no longer in a channel. We're moving to the upside. We didn't make all-time highs, so the place of the upside is still intact. So coming into yesterday, obviously, as we all know, it was a heavy morning downside. It was a heavy morning downside. So I ended up shorting this to the downside as well. We'll get into that. But the trend is your friend, the dip is your best friend. We ended up, it's so crazy. We ended up breaking this level. Remember, guys, the break and retest happens on every time frame. The higher the time frame, the better. When in doubt, zoom out. We ended up breaking this level with strong momentum pushed to the upside. Guess what, guys? We still need to retest. This is not a coincidence that we had a morning downside yesterday. Buyers stepped up, right, at our 242.80, the key level that we broke out and still needed to retest, and then stepped up and pushed this thing all the way back up. That is the definition of trading with a higher time frame. The trend is your friend, and the dip is your best friend. You want to practice those good habits. So let's go into the intraday here on AMD yesterday. And you know, it's funny, coming into that session, I said, hey, I'm willing to short AMD if it breaks down, just because I've noticed a pattern here throughout the week that there's been relative weakness on AMD compared to the overall market. But I ended up skipping this trade because it wasn't worth the risk. And it was a break and retest off of 249.80. It was a break and retest off of that. Now, why did I skip this trade even though I got the break and retest, right? You can always say, oh man, you left so much. This was a big lesson this day, and especially a lot for the beginner traders in the Discord, because I know for a fact a lot of traders have FOMO kick in here. Believe it or not, a lot of people lost yesterday. You would think it's very easy. I know for a fact A lot of traders have FOMO kick in here. You see the morning downside, you're thinking how much money you can make, right? Plan your trade your plan. If a trade doesn't set up in my system, I don't take the trade. I don't care. So yeah, you got to break and retest off of 256.10. We're still bullish bias on the higher time frame, and this just set up. We're not making a lower low yet. And then, of course, that morning downside kicks in. Now, I ended up skipping this trade. Why? Because at this time, I'm noticing AMD and QQQ are in sync, and we're still bullish bias. So as as QQQ is approaching a daily support level, it's starting to bounce. So guess what's bouncing with it? AMD. So I'm looking at AMD. I literally have my contracts ready to short. But as soon as we got this bounce here, and I said, hey guys, if QQQ breaks over this, that's a break of structure. So I don't want to do that if I see that AMD and Qs are in sync. There's no relative weakness here in this during this time on AMD. So it's very different. So if I'm noticing the market and the tech name is in sync, I'm going to skip that trade. I did not let FOMO kick in here and chase this downside, right? That's just not who I am as a trader. Hold your water, be patient, follow your rules. So we ended up taking a trade down here to the downside, but guess what? Very patient. I didn't see all this and say, oh man, I'm missing out. I still took a trade off my key level, a break and retest, and I sold into that lower day for a quick hit for 10%, right? Playing your trade your plan, it was a great trade. Another lesson here is not being biased, right? Even though I know I'm bullish bias, I know the higher probability shot is looking for long entries. If I see the morning rip into the downside, I'm not going to force to go long. And this is where a lot of traders, right, make this mistake, trading the break and retest and not understanding how to read the overall market. Because you get a pullback to our daily 249.80 and you see this strong green candle and you think to yourself, oh, buyers are stepping up, let me go long. And then you get stopped out and you're blaming the system. But you got to understand context matters. But more to the story, right? We planned our trade, we traded our plan. I knew not to be greedy down here. I took the break and retest, right? It was a 10% trade. I'll take my base hit, but I sold where I sold on the lower day break because one, I know we're extended. And this is why it's very important to know the average dollar amount on the stock that you trade. So I know, all right, what is the likelihood of AMD continuing to drop another $5, another $4? The probabilities are not that high, right? So I took what the market gave me. Understand, there's going to be 4 outcomes to a trade. A big win, a small win, break even, or a loss. It's the 4 outcomes to every trade. So in this situation, right, just taking what the market gave me. But the biggest thing here on this day, and this is really the biggest thing, is this was the break and retest on the daily time frame. Buyer stepped up here. We needed to retest this level. We broke it a couple of days ago. And look at that, right? The trend is your friend. The dip is your best friend. So that was a great visual and a great example to break down here on AMD. Just, talking about, hey, when everyone's looking to short and they're going into the day looking for both sides, no, not me. I want to see, okay, where can I get in to join the trend? And this was just textbook. This was textbook. We broke this, maybe a week ago? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so a trading week ago. And yesterday was our retest. There's no coincidence. Buyer stepped up here and we pushed all the way back up to roughly 253. That's a solid trade if that's how you were looking at it. So I really wanted to break that down there on AMD. Ended up taking that trade. Like I said, I took 3 trades. At this point, it's 4 now on AMD, right? Roughly 10% gain. I took what the market gave me and I went about my day. Very simple here. See how I'm not trying to force and make my money back? I planned my trade. I traded my plan. I traded my system off my key levels. I didn't let FOMO kick in. I didn't chase the move to the downside. I said, hey, if this is 10% on the low day break, I'm going to take my dub and I'm going to go about my day. So let's go into today, which was really my biggest loss day, but I wouldn't change anything differently. And this is what I mean by you got to be a good loser. And today was one of those days where it was a great loss on AMD, but I'm trading with 0 DTE, so I had to respect my stop loss. So let's go here on AMD. So this is where understanding liquidity comes in, plan your trade your plan. And I love this. So keep in mind, we still are bullish bias here on the higher time frame. And what I loved about coming into today's session on AMD, like I said, I'm not looking at Apple. Apple just had earnings. So even if I wanted to trade Apple today around this time, the IV was through the roof, so I couldn't even trade it. And Tesla is literally sitting dead smack in the middle of the range on the weekly time frame. So there's no setup there for me, at least on Tesla. So kind of like I broke down here at the start of the week, what do you notice? All right, we come into the day. We reclaim the previous day low here on AMD. Like I said, I don't trade off these levels, but I use them as context references. So what does that tell me? All right, we swept the liquidity. We pulled back on the intraday. We pulled back to our 234.65. Buyer stepped up here, defended this, pushed it all the way back up to the top of the range. So pull back off my key level. Buyers end up stepping up, defending this. We ended up reclaiming the previous day low. So we swept those orders, and statistically speaking, if buyers reclaim that previous day low, it's more likely to push the price back to the top of the range. See what I mean here? So these are the confluences that I'm looking at in my thesis behind my trade. So coming into today, I say, hey guys, the pre-market game plan here is a break and retest over 242.80. If that sets up, this looks really good to the upside, right? Key level did its job. This is just how you have to think in probabilities. Hey, it's a good loss. I planned my trade. I traded my plan. Now, the annoying thing about this loss is we actually ended up getting squeezed out of our position for a loss. Right? As you can see, the market's still open, so I'm still making this video very fresh. I love the trade. My plan worked out. My thesis was correct, but I got to respect my stop loss. These contracts ended up going for like roughly 30% here just into this high day push. So, right here, stop loss was right here. I just took this trade. Remember like yesterday. So, break, retest, I took my shot here, ended up getting squeezed out of my position for a loss here. Keep in mind, it's a Friday, 0 DTE, so I got to respect my stop loss, and we ended up ripping through that high of day. I like the trade, planned out very well. My thesis was correct, but hey, this is what you call a good loss. This is a break, good displacement, retest, and we push, breaking above the high of day. There's nothing you can do about that. Playing your trade, trade your plan. Now, all this is easy to say in hindsight, but in real time, right? We just pulled back to the bottom of the range. We bounced off our daily support level. We just broke back above the previous day low, and now we're breaking above our daily resistance level here that we just held yesterday. Good displacement, got the retest, buyer step up, push this thing higher. That's the definition of a good loss. That's being a good risk manager, a great loser. I didn't take this trade again, and this is very important. I didn't take this trade again and say, oh crap, okay, cool, we got the reclaim. Let me give it another shot. Oh, big momentum candle breakout here. Let me give it another shot. No, I took a good loss. Plan your trade, trade your plan, be a great loser. So my stop loss is right here. And that's the thing about Fridays, right? If this was a Monday or a Tuesday, I know, especially on how AMD moves, I can hold this. You got to wait for your candle to close under your stop loss. But it's a Friday, like I said, and I ended up getting squeezed out of my position for a loss. As I always say, guys, what happens when we fail a key level and reclaim it with momentum? Those are shorts getting squeezed out of the positions for a loss. Now, that's why you have to understand liquidity and understand these things and where to place your stop losses. I was a part of this move, right? I sold for a loss. I was a part of this fuel to the upside, the break through the high day. That was me as well. So part of the game, I'm just understanding that. Plan your trade, trade your plan. I love the trade. Now, my last trade on the day here was Palantir, and very frustrating. But guess what? I'm a great loser. No one can lose better than me. And as you can see, my thesis was correct. I didn't just jump into this trade because I was like, oh man, I ended up losing AMD. Let me make my money back. No, plan your trade, trade your plan. I haven't traded Palantir in months, literally in months. I have not touched the same in months. But today, oh man, this was a beautiful setup to the downside right off the pre-market plan. Now, why is that? Look at this. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is 100% worth the risk for me. Weekly time frame. What do you notice here about Palantir? Every time we pull back into this 148, what do? We push to the top of the range. We push to the top of the range. So I know, okay, if we can break under this, look at the downside. This trade is worth the risk for me. That's how you have to think about your trades. This is an A+ shot. Every single trade that I've taken this week, I would take again. And this, right, as you can see, my thesis was correct, but the timing wasn't in my favor. I took my 2 losses, I planned my trade, I traded my plan, and I went about my day. So I'm noticing here on Palantir on the weekly time frame, right? On the weekly, the higher the time frame, the better. Guys, we're trending to the downside. We are stair-stepping to the downside. If we get this, oh man, we're no longer in a channel, and we are now officially bearish bias on Palantir. So I love the trade because what do you notice here on the daily? Look at that. Look at that. There's nothing in its way. So it's all perspective, right? Because if I won this trade and it went in my favor, we'll be sitting here saying, guys, this is how I made a 100% return today. But that's just not the case. So, but guess what? I wasn't biased. I wasn't a sore loser. I wasn't trying to make my money back. I took my 2 shots, my 2 planned trades, and I got out the trade. Now, another reason here, and you'll understand that, I'm reading the liquidity here. When I took this trade, this previous day low was not swept. So in my head, okay, guys, this is unmitigated liquidity. We're trending to the downside here on Palantir. If we break under 148.05, there is nothing in its way to the downside. And as you can see, right, my trade ended up being correct. My thesis was correct. It's just the timing wasn't in my favor. There's nothing I can do about that. The probabilities were not in my favor. I'm a great loser. So ended up doing that. I ended up taking this break. And this is a key example of, right, I trade my chart, not my P&L. I was up like maybe 12, 10% here into this lower day push. Most traders, they're thinking, okay, I just lost on my AMD trade. If I sell here, I made my money back, or at least I'll be break even or small red. There are no correlations between trades. Every trade is different. Every trade is unique. Whatever happened on the AMD trade has nothing to do with my Palantir trade. So I planned my trade. I traded my plan. I said, hey guys, break and retest over 148. If we can get this flush through the lower day, this thing is going to tank. And what do you see what's happening right now? We broke to that lower day and it tanked. So thesis was correct. Thesis was correct. Just right probabilities weren't in my favor. And what I loved about this Palantir trade is what do you notice here on the 15-minute that we're doing all week? Even before we had this big sell-off yesterday, it's been having clean price action to the downside. Clean price action to the downside every single day. we are stair stepping and trending lower. So when I'm taking a short off my 148.05 here, I'm just catching the trend. The trend is your friend and the dip is your best friend. This is our next leg lower. So, right, plant, it worked out beautifully, but buyers ended up defending this a little bit longer than, right, we wanted it to at 148. And as you can see, we finally gave it up. So that was the plan there on Palantir. And it's so funny. Like I said, I haven't traded this name in so long. I'm actually going to show you here my pre-market plan. Right, this is from my Discord right here yesterday, basically 6 p.m. Palantir, forgot to add this one. Guys, I have not touched this name in over a month. This is 100% worth the shot. Every trade that I've taken, I plan my trade, I traded my plan, and you can see right here, just on this little screenshot, hey, if we give up this weekly level, the RR is there. So yeah, I took a loss on this trade today, 100% worth the risk. And you can see right now that it's playing out exactly what I was looking at, what I was aiming for here on Palantir. So let me go back here to TradeZella. So as you can see here, I ended up scaling down on both of my trades. These are all controlled losses, right? I'm not worried about making my money back. I know I can easily do that. But this is where traders go wrong. They try and make their money back. That's not your job. So you see what I mean here? I took good trades here. I took good losses here. I ended up getting squeezed out on my position for a loss on AMD. It was a winning trade. Those contracts went for 30%. But hey, so be it. And then I scaled down because I have to let market structure take me out. I understand these things. So today was a good day. And what I really want to hit on here, and I know I've said this and I'm going to say it again, this is why you cannot, this is why you cannot judge your performance as a trader based on wins or losses. Because every trade that I took this week, the risk to reward was there. It was off my pre-market plan. It was an A+ shot. It just wasn't a good week. I didn't get the follow through I was looking for. Like I said, out of all my tech names that I trade, I only traded AMD this week. I only traded that. The only second name that I took today was Palantir. That's it. So I know, okay, cool. I'm not really getting the probabilities here that I'm looking for on my names, right? I'm out of the tech names that I trade, there's only one that's in rotation right now, which was AMD. So I understood that. So when I look at this, I'm not questioning my system. I'm not questioning myself. The probabilities just were not there this week. They were not that favorable, and that's okay. So I'm excited to show you guys this. I'm excited to show you guys the monthly recap, and just to bounce back from this, right? To show you my mindset going forward. I'm not going into Monday saying, all right, what should I do differently? I would do nothing different. Absolutely nothing. I was a risk manager before I was a trader. I planned my trade. I traded my plans. I let market structure take me out. I traded my chart, not my P&L. Yeah, I was up green on some of these trades, but I don't care about that. I'm looking for the bigger move. I'm not a scalper. So hope this helps. If you guys had a bad week, you are not alone. I hope you're able to learn from this. Very transparent. And yeah, this is trading, guys. This is trading. So you know what I'm going to do this weekend? Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna enjoy just being a beach bum, get away from the charts, and come back into Monday with a fresh mindset, right? There's no correlation between trades. There's no correlation. So if you had a good week or even a bad week, don't take this week's performance going into next week. Review your trades, see what you did correct, see what you did wrong. Whatever you did right, lean on it. Whatever you did wrong, know it so you don't do it again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So I appreciate the love, support. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys are able to learn from this. And I will see you guys on the next one.